We all know the story, the kind-hearted girl mistreated by her stepmother and stepsisters, aided by a fairy godmother, a pumpkin transformed into a carriage, and a glass slipper that leads her to a happy ending. The classic, and they lived happily ever after. But what if all of this was just a lie? A tamed, polished, and sweetened tale hiding the truth. A truth not made of magic, but of obsessions, revenge, and horrors buried between the lines of one of the most beloved stories ever told. The original Cinderella was not meant for children. It was a warning. As children, we were told Cinderella was the sweetest princess, a symbol of goodness and hope. But behind that glass slipper lies something much darker. Cinderella is not just a fairy tale. She is a ritual, an ancient symbol speaking of death, rebirth, and sacrifice. Before becoming a princess, Cinderella was a broken girl reduced to ashes. Yet from those ashes, something was reborn. Something time tried to bury. Early versions spoke of blood, deceit, and dark magic, not of dreams. This is the true story of Cinderella, a story that burns, like the ashes from which it all began. And if you think you know the truth, prepare yourself. Nothing will be as you remember. Every legend has two faces, the one we are told and the one no one dares to look at. Today we venture into the second part. If you don't want to miss a single detail of this exploration into the dark side of fairy tales, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. The journey into darkness has just begun. We were told a story of dreams and justice, a gentle girl crushed by cruelty, redeemed by a grand ball and a sparkling glass slipper. But behind that tale of hope hides another truth, far more complex and dark. If we pause for a moment, something doesn't add up. Cinderella's world is full of pain, deceit, and silence, yet everyone seems blind to it. Her kindness turns into obedience, her patience into resignation, and the happy ending is not born of her courage, but of another's gaze and recognition. Did Cinderella really want to be saved? Or was she just trying to survive in a world that sought to extinguish her? Disney taught us to see a golden dream. But in early European versions, Cinderella was no innocent angel. She knew loss, loneliness, even revenge. Magic is not always sweet. The fairy godmother, the slipper, the prince, all these symbols shine, yet they are born from ancient, dark archetypes tied to fire, the moon, and death. Think about it. Her name is no coincidence. Cinderella means she who is reborn from the ashes, and every step she takes through embers and smoke, every tear shed for her suffering, represents a process of transformation, an initiatory path where the old self dies to give birth to the new. The traditional tale reveals a cruel world, where survival is the only possible victory. And Cinderella, through her resilience and adaptability, becomes a symbol of rebirth. Not a princess waiting for a savior, but a soul confronting her darkness and emerging stronger. Perhaps we are not talking about the story of a saved girl, but of a resurrected one. The story of Cinderella is far older than we believe. Its roots sink into time, reaching back to 9th century China, where a young woman named Yi Xian lived among fish and spirits. Her only ally was a magic fish, killed and eaten by her stepmother. But from the fish's bones, Yi Xian gained what she wished for: clothes, riches, and the power to change her fate. Notice an important detail. There is no benevolent fairy godmother here. Magic is born from death, sacrifice, and reverence for what was lost. Yi Xian's strength lies in turning grief into power. Pain becomes a tool for survival, and the world around her turns into a stage of trials, deceit, and cunning. Our journey continues in 17th century Italy, with Giambattista Basile and his Zazala. Here we find the first plot twist. Zazala, urged by her governess, kills her stepmother by snapping her neck with a chest. Her reward? A basil plant which becomes the source of her magic. But it's not benevolent. To gain her dresses, Zazala must recite macabre spells and water the plant with her own tears. Cinderella's magic is born from pain and death. In Germany, with the brothers Grimm, comes Aschenputtel, the most brutal version of all. The slipper is not crystal but gold, and the stepsisters are willing to do anything to fit their foot into that symbol of wealth. The first sister cuts off her toe, the second part of her heel. But two pigeons, perched on the magic tree grown from Cinderella's mother's grave, sing a warning: blood betrays the stepsisters and the prince turns back. The original ending is even darker. At the wedding, the two pigeons avenge the dead mother, blinding each stepsister. There is no forgiveness, no redemption, only eternal punishment. Behind the simplicity of the tale lies an initiatory language. The ashes are not just dirt or poverty, they represent the death of the self, the destruction of earthly identity. It's an alchemical image. Only by burning matter can one obtain gold. The fall into the embers is not punishment, it is preparation. It is the descent into shadow, the rite that precedes rebirth. The slipper, that famous symbol, is not merely love or romance. For centuries it represented social status, purity, and, in some cases, sexual availability. The slipper ritual is a test of worthiness. Whoever fits the distorted standard is chosen. It is an act of possession, not of love. And then there's the dead mother. In the Grimm version, there is no fairy godmother. There's a tree growing over the mother's grave, watered by Cinderella's tears. From that tree comes power, not from heavenly goodness but from earth and decay. The dead mother becomes a vengeful force, guiding the pigeons that punish the stepsisters. The pigeons are not just birds. They are messengers from the afterlife, bearers of invisible justice. Their actions, which may seem cruel or grotesque to us, are actually rituals of moral balance. They punish those who cross the limits of respect and virtue, and protect those who have followed the path of transformation and resilience. Cinderella lives beside the ashes because she belongs to the border between the living and the dead. She is not just a servant, she is the keeper of the passage. When she is reborn, she rises like a phoenix, carrying the memory of fire. Her recognition does not lie in beauty, but in the light burning within her eyes, the mark of one who has died and learned to return. That's why the ancient versions were so dark. They were not meant to entertain, but to teach. There is nothing sweet about Cinderella's true magic. Only the path required to walk through the deepest night and be reborn stronger. But Cinderella is not just a personal story. The fairy tale reflects a social trauma. It speaks of a world where justice does not come from institutions but from invisible, symbolic, and sometimes cruel forces. The protagonist becomes an archetype of the silent victim. She endures, stays quiet, adapts. The subtle, almost hypnotic message is that reward comes only to those who accept suffering without rebellion. The stepsisters instead embody envy and rebellion. Their mutilation and final blindness are not just narrative punishment but a symbolic warning of what happens to those who challenge the system without power, who try to seize what society denies them. This psychological structure did not remain confined to fairy tales. Even today in popular culture and on social media we find the same patterns. Pressure to appear perfect, constant judgment, struggle to stand out and survive. Cinderella's archetypes survive in high heels, beauty contests, photo filters, and social roles that demand silence and obedience. Every time someone faces discrimination, exclusion, or pressure, they are living a modern form of Cinderella's trial. A journey of rebirth through pain, where appearances deceive but true magic lies in the ability to rise again. The picture that emerges is clear. Cinderella is not a girl waiting to be saved. She is a symbol of resilience, an archetype of transformation through suffering. The tale reminds us that victory does not always come from outside but is born within. True magic is not instant gratification, but the ability to transform grief, frustration, and loss into strength, awareness, and inner light. And so, every time we feel the weight of judgment or suffering, we can look to Cinderella and remember, what burns, what seems destroyed, is precisely what can give birth to our true rebirth. Fairy tales were born as tools of truth, but over time they became instruments of control. Even Cinderella didn't escape this transformation. When Disney brought its version to the screen in 1950, the world wanted simple dreams and painless love. The modern heroine is no longer the girl who survived the ashes, but the docile one rewarded for her kindness. Pain, transformation, and sacrifice, what once made the tale a true rite of passage, are erased. Cinderella becomes a behavioral model, obedient, patient, grateful. No longer a soul reborn from fire, but a figure waiting to be saved. Salvation no longer depends on one's own strength, but on another's gaze. Every era rewrites the tale. In the Middle Ages it was sacrifice, in the Renaissance purity, in the 20th century obedience. Today it's a symbol of aesthetic success. The glass slippers become high heels, the castle a luxury ideal, magic and algorithm deciding who deserves visibility. The modern prince is social approval, the fairy godmother social media. Despite Disney's dominance for decades, contemporary storytelling began rediscovering the dark sides of the tale. Shows like Once Upon a Time, Cinderella, After Ever After, and the 2021 canon film explore its real consequences. The 2025 film The Ugly Stepsister is emblematic. Here, the stepsisters are no longer villains, but victims of a system that rewards only perfection. The story shows that cruelty doesn't arise from nowhere. It's a reaction to pressure, frustration, and envy imposed by an unjust world. These reinterpretations remind us that the original fairy tale wasn't simple morality. Punishment and suffering were part of its message.
Le sorellastre, vittime della stessa società che opprime Cenerentola, diventano simbolo della pressione sociale e della frustrazione. La nuova lettura ci obbliga a chiederci chi è davvero vittima e chi carnefice, e quanto della nostra realtà moderna rispecchi i vecchi archetipi della fiaba.
Every fairy tale is a threshold. Whoever crosses it never returns the same. Cinderella is not the girl who loses a shoe, she is the symbol of what humanity often forgets. The power born from pain, the beauty that awakens after destruction. Ashes are not death, but the memory of fire, what remains after the burning from which everything can be reborn. Her magic does not lie in the fairy, the dress, or the prince. It lies in the act of rising again even when everything has been destroyed. Every grain of ash tells a story of resilience, souls that have walked through fire and emerged shining brighter. That's why the tale endured through centuries. It speaks for the forgotten, the excluded, the silenced, those who still found a way to shine again. In the oldest versions, Cinderella does not go to the castle to be admired, but to prove that nothing destined to rise again can be erased. Like the myths of Persephone, Isis, or Inanna, goddesses who die and rise from the underworld, Cinderella becomes an alchemist, turning pain into light, darkness into knowledge, loss into power. This message transcends centuries. From the blood and ashes of ancient tales to modern reinterpretations, we see the same dark psychology. Pressure to be perfect, obsession with approval, symbolic violence within culture. Yesterday's victims become today's symbols of resistance. Rebirth from ashes is no longer just a story, it's a universal metaphor urging us to look beneath the surface and uncover the hidden truth behind the polished image of success. The real moral isn't be good and you'll be rewarded. It's much older and more powerful. Burn what imprisons you and rise again from your own ashes. True magic isn't transforming the world around you, it's remembering that the purest light has always been within you. If you too feel that beneath stories lie deeper truths, subscribe to the channel. Fairy tales never die. They disguise themselves, hide, but keep burning beneath the ashes, reminding us every ending is the beginning of another fire. Because every legend has two faces, the one we are told, and the one no one dares to look at anymore.